Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be making another classic, the iconic legendary Martini. As simple of a cocktail as this is to make, so many people get it wrong. So many people. I don't know how, but it's only got 2 ingredients, but yet people can still get it wrong. I'm not even talking about the quantity of the ingredients you use because that's very widely disputed. Some people, if you look at cocktail books from 100 years ago, some might say 50% vermouth, 50% gin. It's fine to use a very minute amount of vermouth and really want the gin to be your favorite up front. It was Winston Churchill that said the perfect martini is using gin, but just looking at the bottle of vermouth. Now that's extreme because then it's just gin over ice or gin stirred with ice. Martini should never be made with vodka. That's a totally different cocktail, and sure, you could call it a vodka martini, you could call it a Vesper, you could call it something else, but the original martini was and always should be made with gin. If a bartender doesn't know that, a mixologist definitely will. So if you are in a bar or a lounge and you see them reaching for vodka instead of gin, saying, please, can you make that with gin? They're obviously not a mixologist because a mixologist will know the difference between the two. They are both neutral grain spirits. However, gin must have juniper in it and other spices. Vodka just comes straight out of the still. If that's the case, again, you could order or drink whatever you want, but it's not a martini. The next big controversy is shaken or stirred. Now, whenever it comes to clear spirits, you definitely want to stir. The only time you ever shake anything is when you have syrups and fruit juices in there. So why does James Bond say shaken, not stirred? If you read the early Ian Fleming books, the man who created James Bond in his novels, he was a rough and tumble kind of guy. He wasn't your typical gentleman spy in a tuxedo. He just wanted his drink and he didn't have time to sit around for somebody to stir it. He just wanted his drink and he wanted to be on his way. So he said shaken, not stirred. The proper martini is in fact stirred because, as I said, all your clear spirits want to be stirred, especially when it's all alcohol. What happens when you shake it? Some people say you bruise the gin, you bruise the botanicals in gin. I don't know if somebody stirred it and somebody shook it, whether I could taste if a gin was bruised. I don't know how that happens. I mean, it's not like we're splitting atoms here with this thing. But I will tell you what does happen. When you have all that ice in here, you're getting it colder faster, but you're also diluting it a lot faster. So you're shaking it really hard, you're melting that ice, and then what you're getting as a result is something that's not necessarily watery, but it's not as thick and smooth and velvety as if you just took the time to stir it properly. If you go into a wedding or a bar, you are typically going to see them use a shaker. There's nothing wrong with that when you're out, but if you want a good martini, go to a classic craft cocktail lounge. The issue with using the shaker, again, is you're going to get all these little shards of ice, which may not bother some people, but if that's the case, they should definitely be using a double strainer. So straining it through the top one and then through another fine mesh strainer. The glassware is very important. It should always be a stemmed cocktail glass. And while I like a coupe, I'm going to go with this. And as you can see, it's a little bit frosty there because I had it in the freezer. You definitely want to keep your stemmed glassware in the freezer until you're ready to use it because there's no ice in this. So you definitely want that drink to maintain a lot of the cold. I generally like a coupe. I don't like these because it's such a sharp incline. You got to really be gentle when you sip it. This is a solution to that. It's a cross between a coupe and a martini glass. This one's already been chilled. I know I said stemmed cocktail glass, but here's an exception. I really like this invention. It's really pretty cool. You keep your ice in the bottom bowl, and you keep your drinking glass on top of it. So it's constantly cold. You're constantly keeping that temperature. This will keep the drink cold consistently. The whole martini experience for me, and it is an experience, is I like it because it's nice and ice cold. That first sip, you're like, ah. By the time you take the second sip, it's already come to a more reasonable temperature to bring out a lot more of those botanicals and flavors. By the third sip, it's not warm, but it's nice and cool. Then by the last sip, you're ready for another one. That's the experience of drinking a martini and enjoying it. So I'm going to go ahead, just start to build my drink. I'm using a mixing tin. I usually use glass, but I broke 2 mixing glasses so far, both from the same company. I won't be using them anymore, and they're not cheap at $35 each. I don't even think I got 35 uses out of it. So I'm just going to go ahead with a double-walled tin mixing glass. It's going to keep the coldness in there better. So, of course, in this day and age, we definitely want to use tongs. I'm just going to put all the ice in here. Right. Now, the vermouth. That's the biggest question. How much vermouth? Some people say a 1/4 ounce. You know what you do? I like to go like this. I like to put a 1/2 ounce in there, dump it, get the stirring spoon, and after a good stir, you start to melt some of that ice. You start to get the container cool, and then I would simply go like this. I would dump it all out. So I just want to heat the vermouth in there. Let's water the plant here. Now, whatever residual vermouth is in there, and whatever the ice held onto, is more than plenty for me. So, yeah, we started out with a 1/2 ounce. What's left in there, probably less than a 1/4 ounce, and that's just fine by me. The original martini was made with Plymouth gin. You could use another gin. This is a great one. It's one of my favorites, but this is really high in proof. This is 114 proof. It is daytime, and I may want more than one, so this is a little bit too strong. And remember, this drink is just pure alcohol. So I'm going to go with this lighter 80 proof gin, and this is a real nice one. It's called Hannah. It's made in the United States. It's got really odd botanicals in here. You have to look it up, but I really like this. This is made in San Francisco. It's got a very unique taste to it. I really like the botanicals in here. This you won't taste much. This is just going to taste a lot more like alcohol. This has got a nice, pleasant taste to it. And that's part of the martini too. Make sure you pick the gin you really like. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to add 2 ounces of my favorite gin, or gin I like. And then we are just going to stir until this gets nice and cold. As always, your garnish. I'm going to put my garnish in last. Ever hear somebody ask for a dirty martini? They just want the extra olive juice in there. I'm not a big fan of the olives. I'm just going to garnish it with that. I'm actually fine with a lemon rind peel because I love the essence of the lemon. But we're doing it the traditional way today. So I'm just going to pour this. Typically, it should come up to the top of the glass, but then I'd have to use 3 or 4 ounces. And again, I think a typical serving size is 2.5 ounces of gin, and I think that's plenty for a Friday afternoon. I want to not go too crazy. I want to be able to relax and enjoy the rest for the weekend. So let's give it a taste. It's delicious. It's delicious. You have the great taste of the gin. You have just a very subtle whisper of the vermouth. That, to me, is a perfect martini. Always stirred, never shaken. And the gin is entirely up to you. Pick your favorite, but it's ice cold, it's nice, it's velvety. And yeah, I'm going to enjoy this now. It's Friday. It's been a week and a half. Cheers.